Cpac. Or I heard someone earlier phrase it a little bit better. Cpac.
Some of the most well-known names in the Republican Party aren't at Cpac or Tpac. Notably, the Senate Minority Leader wasn't invited. Former Vice President declined. So did Nikki Haley after she criticized Donald Trump. God forbid he refused to meet with her at Mar-a-Lago. Plenty of other Republicans are in Florida tonight, including over a dozen members of Congress who should be at work in Washington for the debate and the vote over the COVID-19 relief bill. Instead, they've notified the clerk of the House they're voting by proxy, citing, of all things, the ongoing public health emergency, while they're at a packed pep rally in Florida, surrounded by a decidedly mask-hostile crowd.
Hello, Cpac. Didn't anybody tell you that you're supposed to be canceled?
There's nowhere I would rather be than here with my fellow patriots, free than locked down in Washington, D.C. Florida got it right, and the lockdown states got it wrong.
The socialists and the communists who want to see our nation burn.
They want to erase our history. They want to replace it with their crazy Marxist theories.
They want to indoctrinate our children. They want to remove our moral foundation from the next generation.
They've banned the Muppets.
Mr. Potato Head was America's first transgender doll, and even he got canceled.
Conform or they will cancel you. Sounds a lot like communist China, doesn't it?
Liz Cheney and her politics are only slightly less popular than her father is at a quail hunt. What?
God bless President Trump.
You know, on January the 6th, I objected during the Electoral College certification. Maybe you heard about it. I did. I stood up.
Although we are broadcasting these speakers, we want to provide you with that. It does not mean that we necessarily believe or support all of their beliefs.
Just toss in a caveat there at the end. Back with us tonight, two guests we love having. Caroline Randall Williams is an author, a poet, academic, and observer of all things political, writer in residence at the Department of Medicine, Health, and Society at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. And Bill Kristol, the author and writer and thinker and Politico, veteran of the Reagan and Bush administrations, editor-at-large of The Bulwark. Bill, you'll understand if I begin with you. I want to get your take on the Marxism and communism running rampant, let's admit it, through our society, along with vague references to Mr. Potato Head and lockdown culture. Bill, this is your former political party. What do you make of it now?
Cpac was always a little fringy. We used to joke about it being the Star Wars bar. There were some oddballs and eccentrics and extremists in the midst of some normal Republicans and people selling, their T-shirts and so forth in Washington. I really, watching those clips, it was chilling, though. I mean, the spirit now is not the Star Wars bar. The spirit is closer to that of a Munich beer hall with a cult of personality, an authoritarian sentiment and spirit, a denunciation of one's political opponents as fundamental enemies of society. You can make fun of a lot of stuff that's going on there, but it's scary, and you can't honestly say that may not be half the Republican Party right now.
Professor, your alarm from your last appearance on this broadcast has stayed with me ever since, and it's with that in mind that I ask you to comment on this gathering. And are you somehow comforted by knowing demographics are not this? Demographics are going in the other direction. And so the base, while frothed up and enthusiastic, is by definition shrinking.
I am sort of comforted, but I also think that, what we're seeing to me is, and I've said this before, I think we're seeing an antibiotic resistant strain of a disease that has come from not effectively eradicating the virus, the disease of white supremacy and toxic masculinity. I mean, Matt Gaetz is a young guy, right? Like, there are young people in this movement who are equipped. They are, trained to speak like total nonsense and twist the truth into propaganda. And I sort of think that it's really time, for the sake of democracy, for Republicans, or even just former Republicans who still claim to be conservatives, holding on to the idea that the party is salvageable, need to reorient themselves to the new reality, because we can't afford the risk. If I'm right, then Ted Cruz's smug, callous, smarmy speech, it was as demonstrative in my mind as it was reprehensible. This is the direction of the party. There's not enough gravitas or fortitude behind the scenes to right the ship, and I think that we have to figure out what we're going to do about that.
Bill, to the point the professor just made about people who claim to be conservatives, we get the freshest news around here, so I want to play for you what just transpired on Fox News.
The fact that the president is going to come and reconnect with the people who love him so much on this stage, I think it's going to be a very, very important moment for actually healing amongst the conservative side of all of this. But I think for the country generally, no one's voice should be silenced, and definitely not a president of the United States.
So, Bill, that's Matt Schlapp, and they do nothing quietly. I keep hearing this extension of the word conservative, kind of an attempt at brand management. It occurred to me tonight, you are a damn conservative. How do you feel about others using that label?
Look, I could say at great length why it's not true conservatism and there's a better conservatism, and I could talk about everyone from Edmund Burke to Bill Buckley, but at some point you do have to say, Caroline's right about this, conservatism is what it says it is at the time. And if that is the conservative political action conference, and they're getting they're getting the former president of the United States, they're getting sitting U.S. senators, they're getting sitting U.S. members of Congress, proud to have objected to the electors on January 6th, unwilling to denounce the insurrection on January 6th. So now, does that mean that you still want to try to weaken them within the Republican Party, defend the decent Republicans? But I don't disagree with Caroline that the fight for the Republican Party in the short term may be over. And I wrote a piece about this last week, that maybe we're all, people like me now, are kind of the Republican wing of the Biden coalition, try to help President Biden govern successfully, but you cannot afford to have that party that you're seeing a good chunk of on the stage at Cpac back in power.
Your use of the Republican wing of the Biden administration made both Williamses on the screen smile. Both of these guests have agreed to stay with us as we get to a quick break. Coming up, Republicans in the Senate once used the minimum wage increase as a reason not to vote for the relief bill. What do they do now is the question.